Okay. Good evening, everyone, or maybe I should say good afternoon now that it's daylight savings time. My name is Karen Baker with the Capital Corridor, and I just want to welcome you all to workshop number 1 for our business plan update for fiscal year 2021-22 and fiscal year 2022-23. Over the next hour, you're going to be hearing from various staff members of the Capital Corridor about our plans and priorities for these next 2 coming fiscal years. And we will also be presenting you with this information, but also hoping that you'll have lots of good questions and comments. And these questions and comments will actually be part of the official business plan, annual business plan document that we will then present to the board of directors for approval. So before I hand this over to our managing director, Rob Paget, and the rest of the staff, I did want to go through a few housekeeping items. In this next slide, here we go. So first and foremost, I want to let everyone know that we are recording this event and it will be available for replay after. Someone already asked a question about that. It may take us a couple of days to do that, but we'll try to get that up as soon as possible. I did also want to mention that this is the first workshop. We will be having one on Thursday at 5 o'clock as well as Friday at noon. So if someone you know missed it and they want to participate, there are other ones that they can certainly join. All of your cameras are off, so I think you probably realize that, and everyone is muted by default. But since we have such a small group, I think at the end of this, we'll take an opportunity to have people ask questions in person if you wish. So I'll talk a little bit about questions in a minute, but I think that's something we can probably do given a small group. So speaking of questions are really important. This is our annual process where we articulate our plans and priorities, and we really want to get feedback from our riders and members of the public about what we're planning. So questions are important. I am asking everyone to put your questions in the Q&A. So at the bottom of your screen, and I'm looking over at my other screen here, you should see a chat box, a raise hand, and a Q&A box. Because the Q&A box really helps us manage the questions better, it's preferable if you put your questions in there. And like I said, that way all of the questions and answers can be incorporated into our final business plan document that goes to our board. I think that's it for sort of the housekeeping. Oh, one other thing I did want to mention about the questions. Like I said, I think at the end, we'll have an opportunity. I'm going to go through some questions during the course of the presentations, just so that we can answer things that are relevant to what's being discussed. But at the end, we can open it up to some questions and use that raise hand feature so that you can actually talk. So I'm going to hand this over to our managing director, Rob Paget, right now. He'll talk a little bit about the business plan process, and then let you know what other staff members are going to be discussing here tonight. So thanks,
Karen.
Rob.
And can you go on to the next slide?
Sure.
So first of all, I wanted to say hello to everyone and just say how much I appreciate your time tonight. I have always, this is I think my 4th year at Capital Corridor doing the business plan workshops, and I always find this to be a really excellent time to talk to customers. We try to talk to customers all year round, but we have some structure with our proposed business plan, and I've always found these to be great conversations. And next year we will see you again on the train. I think 2 years ago we did our first Facebook Live workshop, and now everybody's gravitated to Zoom. So we're doing Zoom this year. I'm here with Karen Baker, who said hello at the beginning, and Leo Sanchez, who's my deputy managing director, and Jim Allison, who is our planning director. And they'll go through some specifics in the course of today, but we really want to hear from you. And we have not been out on the train as much as we usually are. So this is a great chance to hear from you. And I hope you're still able to ride or looking forward to riding. This is a little bit different than usual. So usually we're doing these workshops earlier in the year, and then we present it to the Capital Corridor board in February. But as the year continues to evolve and we're trying to continue to adapt as the health conditions change and our federal support changes, we are pushing this back a little bit, and we're going to present this to the board in April. And so we're doing our workshops a little bit later than usual. So you can see here the overall process. We pushed out the draft the week of March the 12th. We're having the workshops this week, and we're asking you to please give us comments by March 26th. And as Karen said, we will respond to those comments. So we always do that, and we present those in a package to our board as a part of the adoption. So again, we really appreciate your feedback and welcome it. And if you have others who are friends who can't make it, at least encourage them to read the document and give us some feedback. This is going to be a much more dynamic year than we're used to. Usually we have fairly incremental changes. We're ambitious in this plan about our service restoration, and we want to be ambitious. And we will probably have to adapt over the course of the year and make changes as we go. Can you go to the next slide, Karen?
Mm-hmm.
I'm still seeing, okay, here we go. So here's the overall plan for what we'll cover today. And we're just going to hit the highlights and go quickly so we give lots of time for questions. And I'm going to hand it over to Leo next, who will talk about the first couple items on this list. And then Jim will cover some of our other efforts, in particular, some of our projects. So I'll just say, overall, our goal is to be back in business as soon as we can be back in business. I'm super optimistic given that we've had some good federal support through the COVID relief packages and even the more recent one that was passed in March. That is going to help make up for a lot of the lost passenger revenue. It puts us in a better place to be able to sustain this period of sustained drop in ridership. But it does let us rebuild that hopefully quickly once the pandemic eases and our passengers start coming back. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Leo, and I look forward to your questions at the end of the session. Go ahead, Leo.
Thanks, Rob. So next slide. All right, so for this first slide, I want to take a moment to highlight last year's performance. The period that I'm covering is October 1st, 2019 through September 30th, 2020. And as you can see from the graphic, our ridership ended up at 898,000 for this period, which was down about 49% from where we normally end up. And you can see the number versus the same period, the year prior. On performance ended up at 88%, which is a couple of points below our plan. We are working on driving this upwards, and currently we're seeing some improvement here in this area. Our delays are up a bit per 10,000 miles. And lastly, I do want to highlight that we aren't planning any fare increases for this upcoming year. Next slide. All right. So we have now been running a reduced service since March of last year. Currently, we're running 16 weekday and 10 weekend trains for those of you that have continued to ride with us. You can see that our current plan is that late this year, we are planning to go back up to 24 weekday and 16 weekend trains. And I do also want to highlight that we are also planning on going to a pulse schedule, which is a hourly arriving and departing schedule. So every hour on the hour type of schedule. So you should be seeing that on our website, and that takes effect March 29th. We're working hard for a service increase, and we're hopeful that by the end of this year, we'll be able to go back to the 24 weekday, 16 weekend, like I mentioned, and hopefully in the in 2022, we'll be back at our full service. Next slide. All right, so for safety and security, we are planning on continuing to maintain health and safety standards and procedures that were implemented during the pandemic. So this includes some of the enhanced cleaning procedures aboard, the fogging before each turn. We're going to be continuing to explore sanitizing technology to improve what we've done. We are looking at reinstating our cafe service. So I know a lot of people are excited and looking forward to that. And I do want to highlight that we are going to be continuing the federal mask mandate, and we're going to be abiding by those, what the CDC has put out in terms of that. So we want to make sure that everyone feels safe when they ride with us, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure that we provide a safe service for you all. Next slide.
Hey, Leo, before we go to the next slide, could you talk a little bit more about the cafe car and the reopening, sort of what it would take to do that, and how, sort of what those steps might look like and how we might promote it? This is a question that came from one of our attendees.
Sure. So the first thing we've been doing is, number one, we've been following the state guidance as it pertains to indoor dining and mirroring that along our service. So we're following the tiered phases in terms of being able to reopen our cafe service. So once we feel that we see that the state is giving us the green light to be able to do that, we are trying to reinstate and bring back cafe service. So we're hopeful that we'll be able to do that this summer, and hopefully we can coincide that along with our service increase.
Mike, well, hopefully that should have answered Mike's question. Do you know what tier that is? Is there a specific tier that we're looking for?
I'll pass that on to Rob. Rob, I'm not sure if you know exactly which one it is.
Yeah, so you have to be the California Department of Public Health has given us the guidance that we should be in the tier orange, and we would need to be in that tier for every county that we serve. And then at that point we'll have to turn it back on and give Amtrak the direction to do that. There'll probably be a little bit of delay because they have to bring the workforces back to be able to do that. But we are looking to get into the orange before the guidance says we should be able to open up cafe service again. And we've heard from people that they'd like to see us wait, because the problem is you have cafe service and you have more people eating on the train without masks on. And so there's a balance there, and we want everybody to feel comfortable riding. It's a good question though. We're ready to bring that back. I know people like our cafe service.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'll move on to the next slide. Are you ready?
Yep, go ahead.
Just give me a sec.
All right, so we're going to continue an active program on our right-of-way in order to reduce incidents and decrease delays. We want to make sure that we keep as safe of a operation as we can, and make sure that that we're active in this area. We do a lot on many fronts to try to improve safety, and we're going to continue to do that. Next slide. All right, so on rolling stock equipment, there's a few things that are happening here. Number one, for renewable diesel, we're gonna be completing the testing that we've been doing on one of the units. For those of you that stay on top of the details, 2103 is the unit that we're testing, and that'll be completed soon. And we're looking to transition and complete a complete fleet conversion by 2022. Another thing that I want to highlight on the rolling stock is that our partner at San Joaquin are looking to start operating their new venture cars. And as soon as that happens, that'll free up some equipment that will allow us to transfer some of their old equipment over to our service and be able to, it'll give us the flexibility to both ensure that we have a 5-car consist for social distancing, and also make sure that we're able to increase our capacity. So we are looking forward to that, and we're staying connected with them to make sure that we're able to do that as soon as possible. And that'll also give us the ability to reinstate our full pre-pandemic service. So one of the challenges that we'll have to be able to do that is get this equipment back. Because one of the things that we did was we gave some of the equipment that we were leasing back to Amtrak in order to manage our cost better. So as soon as we're able to get that equipment, that'll give us an ability to have that equipment that we need. And then lastly, on the door panel replacement, we are continuing to install and hopefully get this completed by the end of this year. If not, it'll be early 2022. And this will mitigate some of the delays associated with doors, and it'll give us a quieter ride. I will add one more thing that I left out, is that we are getting 2 additional charger locomotives, which are tier 4, and they're the more efficient and cleaner locomotives, and those will be arriving anytime now. They should be here this week, but they'll certainly be cut in by the start of this next year.
And just to add, Leo, and as a part of that, we're retiring 2 of the older locomotives.
Right.
And that was funded by the California Air Resources Board. So we're happy that we're going to be adding those to our service in the very near term. So keep your eyes out.
Absolutely. Next slide. And I believe that on that note, I'm actually going to be transitioning and handing it over to Jim Allison to discuss service amenities and our expansion program.
Great. Well, thank you, Leo. I just wanted to remind folks, you can go on our website. If you don't have the business plan, it's at capitalcorridor.org website, and look under business plan, and you can download that draft there. But thank you for attending. It's we'll have to pretend that we're on trains, because this is how we usually do it. But we did have that Facebook one, live one, so this is kind of a mesh of that. So I'm going to talk about some of the service amenities and also some of the projects. So the service amenities are the things that we experience on the train, and they're listed up here. Some of them you're going to notice. Some of them you'll kind of sneak up on you. So the California Passenger Information Display System, we see a picture here of the gentleman looking out, probably looking for his train, but behind him is one of the signs that he has. That's the Passenger Information Display System. Those signs we have still have some useful life in them, but the entire ecosystem and the way it's delivered behind what's behind that sign is getting upgraded. So that is the modernization process for that entire system, and it's going to be able to be pushing out real-time alerts, not only for the system here, but this is the system of record for all systems. Where is the train? So this goes not only to the Amtrak servers, it goes to our servers and other like the Google servers. We're linked up, so you can find out where the train is, and it's going to be going to a real-time notification. So it's a standard that is used throughout the industry to talk. So that's going to be coming live. And that feature is actually available right now, but the works behind this are going to change at each station, and then eventually we're going to be changing out these signs. And for instance, Sacramento will be one of the later ones because it's a more complex station to work on, but we know that there's been some frustrations with the signs there that they're not on or they're not working, but we're working to replace those. So that's the PIDS sign modernization. The next program is the California Integrated Travel Program, and that doesn't make any sense except to us folks here that are working on this project. Well, what this is a project that we're in partnership with the state to fundamentally change the way transit is purchased and planned for, and even how some of the discounts are presented to the public. So we are a fiscal sponsor of this work that's ongoing right now, and we're working with the Caltrans, also with the California Secretary of Transportation's office, to put those tools in place. And you'll start to see some of that if you're really paying attention to transit in California. The Monterey Salinas Transit's rolling out with a new method of paying, which is just via your credit card. Using your credit card as you walk on their buses, and then when you're done with your trip, you walk off your buses, and that closes your trip out. It's called open loop payments, and we're going to be working over this next year to get those introduced on the Capital Corridor trains. So it's going to be a far more simpler interface for the public. There may be some good changes to the products that we sell. They wouldn't be necessarily going through the Amtrak process anymore, but it would be possible that you can just kind of tap on to the train and then tap off the train. And you won't have to worry necessarily about whether you've got a monthly pass or a 10-ride pass or what have you, because there's this thing called fare capping where it kind of keeps track of how many times that credit card's been used getting on the train. And there's a certain cap for a month, if we make the settings right, that you gradually start paying less and less and less, and by the time you've ridden, you'll be up at that monthly rate that we had before. So that's one of the simplifications here. And the other thing that really helps with is those who can't afford a full monthly pass can essentially get there. Everybody gets there equally over time. So it's a good step for equity and access to the train that we couldn't have with the current ticketing system. So you'll be looking for that. There'll definitely be words out on that as we move ahead. But it is, as you can believe, it's a very complex replacement. So bear with us as we go through that. It's not going to be open for all ticket types or all discounts or anything. It's going to start off with one little focused product, and then we'll gradually expand over time.
Jim,
Yeah.
Before you go on to bike access, there was a question about PIDs that I wanted to put out there.
Sure.
The question is, as part of the PIDs modernization, will the new sign show San Joaquin trains and Amtrak long distance trains along with the Capital Corridor trains?
Yeah, the intention is they do that today with the San Joaquin's trains are on there. So the system that we have through back-end servers and different interfaces can show all the trains. So Amtrak is not going to have separate signs for the long-distance trains. It's all going to be through the same infrastructure that we set up. So it's just on the back ends that these data things change. And the San Joaquin trains are on the same system as well. It's only the Amtrak long-distance trains that are on the Amtrak system, but luckily these days we use application protocol interfaces, APIs, and they can talk and translate that language so it shows up on that sign. Okay, good question. I'll move on to the Wi-Fi upgrade. This is actually old news because the trains, with some exception for cars that were in a maintenance place, have all been upgraded with a new Wi-Fi system, has greater speeds for everybody on the train. And right now, with not so many people on the train, nobody's hitting their caps, and we've really opened up this service. So that's the only thing about getting a more crowded train. It's a little more competition for the Wi-Fi signal that's there. But we have a brand new landing page, a lot of features on it that we're going to be changing and getting, like video content, audio content, and some of the fun things that I've done on my few times riding this year. There's a relaxation thing, and you can listen to some stories and things like that. Audible was on it for a while, and we have a new system on that. So the Wi-Fi has been upgraded. That's going to be on all the trains. It's also going to be on the new equipment that's on the San Joaquins as well. So that will be built just before they are put into service. And finally, the bicycle access. Bicycle parking has certainly dropped off with the pandemic, but the same old lockers that we have are available. For instance, Davis has now double stack lockers because they've been that popular. So we're looking for a return of bikes and trains, which I personally feel is one of the great combinations to get around. So if you've been riding your bike during the pandemic period, don't stop. Bring it right onto the train or park it at the station in one of the e-lockers. If you can go to the next slide, that'd be great. Okay, now this is the other part of it. This is not the service amenities. These are the projects that we're working on. There's several other projects that are ongoing that are more reliability projects, and we talk about those in the business plan. But we wanted to highlight the three big ones here, and you can see them on the map in green. The first is the long-awaited Sacramento to Roseville third track phase 1. The good news on that project is we are in the double-digit millions away from getting all the construction funding we need for that. And there's good news about funding programs available for that. So we're very confident we're going to get over the hump and get this project fully funded and hopefully in the ground by 2025. Right now, we're in the 25% design phase. Union Pacific's looking at that right now. And once we get their approval, it's going to go very fast into the 30% design phase, and then it goes even faster from there. So the proverbial ball will be rolling down the hill, and we'll take that momentum and be able to use those additional trips, the additional 2 trips, to really fill in this new schedule and really provide a more comprehensive slotting for different markets to ride on the trains from Placer County, mainly Roseville. The next project is the South Bay Connect project. This is a reroute that reduces our travel times between Oakland and San Jose. Effectively, it takes kind of the straight line, the straightest line possible towards Santa Clara. It does mean we would stop serving at the Hayward and Fremont stations, but we would replace that with a new station we're looking at in the Ardenwood Park and Ride area. And that's going to not only serve the East Bay market in those communities as a replacement of those 2 stations, but it also has really good bus connections to employers on the peninsula. So you're it's right above State Route 84, which is the Dumbarton Highway, is right above the Ardenwood station. So it's kind of this multimodal station that we're working on. That is in its development right now for the EIR, and we will release that looks like later in 2021 and try to wrap it up in 2022. So you'll be able to comment on that, and it does involve some kind of re-shifting of where the freight trains and the Capital Corridor trains run. The last project I'll go into is a huge one. It's the Link 21 program. It was press released earlier this year, and it's a big effort to transform Northern California passenger rail service. And it's not just about that link across from San Francisco over towards Oakland. It shows Emeryville here, but it's really heading towards Oakland. It's not just about that link. It's about everything that would be serving into that link. So it's about the mega region and the rail services that would exist in the mega region, plus expanded BART opportunities. So this is a highly rated project for MTC in the Bay Area, but we know that the project goes so much further. So we're working with partners across 21 counties in Northern California to bring this project to a head. It's going to take some time. It will take some decades, and I am hoping to ride it as soon as I can, but I might be retired by that time. But it's a really big, hopeful project for the Northern California. And that's it for my slides, and I think we're ready to go to the marketing side.
Sure.
Thank you.
So I wanted to mention here that there are a few questions, and I think what I'm going to do is hold off and ask those questions at the end. So I'm just going to do the marketing communications overview, and it won't take long, and then we can move into questions. And at that time, if the attendees want to raise your hands, because again, we have a small group and it would really be nice to hear all your voices. So I'll sort of let you make that decision, and then if you decide not to raise your hand, then I can just ask your questions. So I'm not ignoring your questions right now, but I'm just going to save them to the end because they're a little higher level. So let me move to the slide here. So marketing and communications. Well, I wish that I was sitting in front of you. Well, I wish I was in person with you all talking about all these amazing fair discounts and exciting partnerships that we have planned. You know, unfortunately, we're just not in that situation right now, but we definitely see light at the end of the tunnel and we're excited for the future. But wanted to just kind of bring us down to earth and talk a little bit about kind of where we are right now. So right now we're in this place that I guess we would call travel encouraged, sort of. And what that means is, you know, many of the counties are starting to move into less restrictive tiers. We see businesses starting to open. So there's definitely really good signs. And while for the past year, we've really just been focusing on promoting service for essential travel, we're kind of getting ready to start dipping our toes a little bit into some ridership promotion, but without really going crazy about it. I think the most important thing to say here that's been mentioned earlier too, especially with the cafe car, is that our marketing will be guided by public health conditions. So we're going to want to see, you know, right now the counties are all in the red tier, but I think we're going to want to start seeing even some more improvement from that. So we're just going to be following those public health conditions and sort of making our decisions based on that. In the meantime, you will continue to see health and safety messaging. We know it's really important for people to feel like when they're getting on the train that it's safe, and we know it is, because if you've been on the train, there's plenty of room to social distance. People are wearing masks, and we're just going to continue to you know, just encourage people to be safe and wear their masks and understand the health and safety protocols. At the same time, as I said, we're kind of dipping our toes a little bit. And, you know, it's mostly been for essential travel, but now, you know, there might be people looking for leisure trips. So I think anything that we do from sort of marketing communication standpoint at this point would really be focused on like maybe leisure outdoor destinations, family travel. So, you know, traveling with the people that you've that you've been with all year. So instead of being in the house, you can be on the train and you can go to, you know, Old Town Sacramento or some outdoor destinations where, you know, we know that it's healthy and safe to be there. I will put a little bit of a pitch in for our next quarter conversations, which is the webinar series that we launched over the past year. And we have SF Travel, Visit Oakland, Visit Berkeley, and a couple of other destination management organizations that are going to be joining us at the end of April to talk about how they are going to be welcoming back people to visit their areas. Those types of organizations have really been hard hit by the pandemic as well. So we're excited to do that and start kind of, you know, moving more into encouraging travel, but in a really healthy and safe way. During this whole period, we will probably, starting this spring, we're going to be looking at market research and surveys to identify, you know, what are the people who are riding our train and people who might ride our train, what is consumer behavior going to be like post-COVID? We're not really sure. We have some ideas. We know that more people are working from home, but will they work from home forever? Will they work from home 2 days a week and then only be commuting or taking the train 3 days a week? So those are the kinds of things we really want to try to get out of some market research. I'm sure everyone has been seeing the articles about people moving away. Originally, it was everyone's moving out of state, but now it's, you know, they're moving out of cities, they're moving out of San Francisco, and maybe they're moving into the Sierra foothills. And so that's an opportunity for us. So part of that research and surveys will be to kind of figure out where our current riders are, what new markets we might have potential with, and also some potential fare product opportunities. So if you recall, in the very beginning of, I think it was at the beginning of the pandemic, we extended our 10 ride ticket from 45 days to 60 days. So we want to look at other types of fare products that might better meet ridership demand and ridership patterns. And we want to hear from you. So if you have ideas on the types of fare products that would actually meet what you think your travel patterns might be, please let us know. That would be something you can certainly comment on tonight, or you can comment on, online in the comments for this business plan workshop, but we do want to hear about that. Okay, so how about some bright spots? We have a lot of really great things that we're going to be talking about over the next year. We have our 30th anniversary, which is in December. So you're going to be seeing a lot more about that. We'll probably develop a microsite with that and just have a lot of information on there. Not sure what kind of festivities we'll have, but we'll let you know. We also launched our Capital Corridor Rewards program, which if you haven't signed up yet, it's free. You do not have to be riding the train right now. And basically what that is it gives you access to discounts and coupons at green sort of sustainable green businesses along the Capital Corridor route. And we partnered with Chinook Book to be able to offer that. So I'm hoping Ravi, who's monitoring our chat, maybe you could put the link in for the Capital Corridor Rewards program page. So we definitely encourage you to sign up for that. You've heard about some of the exciting projects that we have going on, like FY21 and South Bay Connect, renewable diesel. We'll be talking more about that. We know that people are excited to hear about that. And then I'm sure we'll be continuing our Corridor Conversations webinar series. Again, we would love to get back on the train and do some of our rider appreciation events. And so it's possible that we'll do kind of a combination of on board and online. What's nice about online is it really gives us an opportunity to reach more people. So I think,
hey, Karen.
the last thing, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead and finish up.
I was gonna say, the one last thing I wanted to say, even though I said we're not having any like big promotions, we still have discounts that are on our website. So if you go to our deals and promotions page that we'll put in the chat, we still have our friends and family, and we have our California everyday discounts, and we also have our student discounts. So definitely check those out, take advantage of those, and be on the lookout for new discounts, probably more like in the coming months. Rob, did you have a question?
Yes, I wanted to just tackle a couple of questions in the chat, and I'm going to merge two questions. So there's a question about how riders can be involved in schedules, and it seems that the schedules are changed without rider input. And then the second question is service expansion and service changes. Will Capital Corridor and San Joaquin's be transitioning Transbay bus service? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong one. I wanted to capture the one above that. Hold on.
Did you, the one about expanding, it says, is it possible during this business plan update to expand service beyond the pre-pandemic
beyond
service
pre-pandemic,
levels?
right?
Yeah.
Yes, or would entities like the UPR, which is the Union Pacific Railroad, prohibit that from happening? Yeah. So the thing that I didn't cover in the presentation, Leo didn't cover in the presentation, which may not be something that everybody's aware of, is we operate on Union Pacific Railroad tracks. And so we do have to negotiate all of our schedules with Union Pacific. And so we did just implement this new, or we are implementing at the end of this month, a new schedule change. And I have heard from some folks about that, and I know some folks don't like it. And so I wanted to talk about what we try to do. So we do have very good data on our customers and who's riding and which of our trains are full. And typically we make very marginal changes in our service in any given time. This year we did a more significant change, and we're doing a couple things with that change. One is we're trying to better stabilize our service. So the goal is to have more predictable times at the stations rather than 3 minutes after 6 and then 8 minutes after 7. We're trying to say 3 minutes after 6, 3 minutes after 7. And what that does is it lets us better connect to a lot of the connecting transit services. So in places like Solano County or Yolo County or other places where you have connecting transit services, and also at the Richmond station down in Richmond, we let people connect to BART. The whole idea is to have really stable, predictable schedules so that our transit partners can connect. The other thing that we're doing with our schedule change is we are dealing with some built-in conflicts we had. We had some kind of train conflicts down in the single track territory south of Oakland that was creating some problems and delays. And so we were fixing some of those problems with that schedule change. And then the other thing that we're doing is we are going to have a direct connection from Auburn all the way down to San Jose. So that's a really big change. And I know some people are not happy about the way that shift happened because it requires that train from Auburn leave about 45 minutes earlier. And this is all about balance, right? So for those who are traveling to Sacramento or Davis, it creates a longer day than they perhaps like. But now what it does do is it lets people travel to places like Martinez, the East Bay, Richmond, down to Emeryville and Oakland, and even down to Santa Clara, and have a partial day down in those areas. Long term, though, the plan is to expand our service up to Roseville to 3 round trips daily, and that's one of the projects that Jim talked about. For those people who are not happy with that change, we are going to continue to have those bus connections at the Sacramento station, so you can take the Amtrak through service if you haven't done that before. So hopefully, you can make that work, and that one of those connections you can do on bus, and perhaps take the train back. And so there are some other options. We're really trying to do our best here to meet the many demands. We are unfortunately constrained to just 1 train a day north of Sacramento until we finish that 3rd track project. And with that enhancement, we're going to be able to go to 3 round trips daily to Roseville. Mm-hmm. So anyways, just a couple of questions, Karen, that I answered there. And if you want to,
Rob, also the rolling stock aspect of that too, which was that's a big one.
The other thing that we're doing in that schedule change is we're more efficiently using our train consists. So we have had issues with fleet availability. It improves the efficiency of our turns, and it actually lets us free up one set of trains that we're then going to be able to use to more rapidly build up our service again. So all this is to make our service more efficient, keep our operating costs at an efficient level, and better serve as many customers as we can serve. Jim, anything else you want to add?
Nope.
Hey, Rob, we had a question about AB 1226 McCarty. Can you talk a little bit more?
Yeah. So there, I saw Mike's comment. Yeah. So there was a bill introduced by Kevin McCarty. My understanding is that bill was too narrowly defined. So you can't have we have a really strong supporter, Assemblyman Kevin McCarty, who's very supportive of our service, and introduced a bill to provide more funding to Capitol Quarter, kind of a shell bill. And my understanding is that is too narrow, so you can't write a bill for a single agency. So we're going to continue to work with his team, and he's a great supporter of Capitol Quarter, and look for opportunities to provide support to our service.
Okay. So we have about 15 minutes left, and I was thinking if anyone would like to speak and not be muted, I think if you just hit the raise hand button, I can then unmute you or ask you to unmute. Oh, okay. Is that okay? I think.
Yeah, the other question, Karen, that was in there is about the connection at Emeryville. And Mike, I know you've asked before about the possibility of AC Transit providing that connection. Our long-term plan is to have AC Transit take that over. And in fact, what we're trying to do across the system is use more of these transit partnerships. So do something with a local transit agency rather than have to independently hire contractors to provide that connecting bus service. AC Transit, like a lot of transit agencies, is working through a lot of details with their kind of their base service, and they've not been able to be responsive to that request yet. But we are going to continue to work with them. It's all positive. I think they're just dealing with the realities of trying to keep their service going during the pandemic. But we're hoping that they can provide that connection to Emeryville and to San Francisco in the long term.
Okay, so we have a participant, David, who would like to ask a question. David, take it away.
Sure. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
Can.
Okay, two-parter here. I'll try to keep it as concise as I can because they're pretty heavy topics. One is regarding the A's EIR for Howard Terminal, the environmental impact report. How much are you guys involved in that with UP controlling the tracks? That's number one. Then number two, can you hit on the expansion to Monterey County, the TAMC, Transportation of Monterey County, whatever they call it. Can you touch on that a bit on a Capitol Corridor expanding down there, or is that going to be Caltrain?
Great question. So Jim, how about if I cover the first one, you cover the second one? Would that be okay?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So on the A's, we are reviewing the EIR. That is a really important project to us because it is adjacent to our to where we run service. I know, I'm sure Union Pacific is likely to also submit comments on that proposal. So I don't have any specific, if you have any comments yourself today that you'd like to share, I don't have any comments yet because we're still reviewing it, but we will plan to submit feedback on that EIR in the near term.
Yeah, I think we can safely characterize our comments right now. There is a concern with that many public crossings walking across the mainline tracks, and that there's some there are measures in place there, but it's ultimately the conclusion is that it's a significant but unavoidable impact, which is that is of severe safety concern. On the Monterey question, at this point in time, it looks like if there's going to be train service down there, it's probably going to be more the Caltrain service. Right now, we don't have enough round trips permitted, both with Union Pacific and also our little southern 2.5 miles is with Caltrain. We have enough round trips with Caltrain to probably introduce service, but we can't get there because we don't have enough permission from Union Pacific because it's a lot of single track territory. So we cannot efficiently push the service past San Jose and have it start in Salinas at an appropriate leaving time to hit the market that train would need to hit. So it would have to leave like at 4 o'clock in the morning to fit into the slot for that train to go all the way to Sacramento. And so we can't hit the markets right now with that. So eventually, I think if you'll be looking at the state rail plan, the 2018 plan, and the plan that they're going to work on, there's going to be some level of service down there. Caltrain's likely to be the first one because they frankly have a lot more frequency and some spare equipment coming up as they electrify their service to do that. So they're likely first. That might change over time, but the door has to open for us to get more frequency to and from San Jose for that to happen.
And the other thing that Jim touched on this too is the California State Rail Plan is kind of a statewide overview of rail in long-term plans. And one of the big things in that is rail agencies are working to better coordinate our connections so that we can, people can make transfers both to other rail services, but also to connecting transit. And the whole overall goal of all this is to let you travel in the state without having to get in a car and get to your final destination. Those are great questions, David. Appreciate the feedback.
Thank you.
Thanks,
David, do you have any concerns or comments on the A's proposal yourself?
Oh, am I still on? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. I couldn't tell with the icon. I still have to get through the EIR myself. I heard it's something like 6,000 pages, and I know it's not all text. However, I still need to get a jump on that. So once I get through that, I'll be able to ask more questions and maybe even answer some. But you touched on, as far as the track safety, I just wanted to mention, and I've been pushing this quite a bit. The current station at OKJ is aging, and since you mentioned the transit going to San Francisco in the future by 2040 or whatever, I thought if there's any plan where the tracks split up to 3 again, further up right by where the bar park's going to be, if that could be a new OKJ, and you could link it with BART, which is supposed to be creating its own transbay to Mission Bay. So kind of a long-winded way of saying it, but that's what I've been when I went to practice, I talked to people about that.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah,
you. Appreciate your.
Link 21 is considering what we might do in sort of that Oakland, Jack London corridor there, and the station that we have may not be the right place for the future. So there are opportunities, and right now it's just very high level concepts, but you are correct in that it's worth looking at something else for the future when we have a whole different rail service in Northern California and through this territory, for sure.
Can I add one more thing real quickly?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I mean, just to touch on what I was just saying, I looked at all the diagrams where the renderings are, whether it be upgrades on the park and everything like that. But just where I alluded to where the tracks split to 3 again, I forget what you call that, where the train parks in, as it does in the current OKJ, where it does further up, further near the rail yard. It's also convenient for that sake, but I don't want to call it a fantasy, but there's enough room where a new train station could be fit there right next to the ballpark around the left field area. So I just want to at least put that in there, since I've been talking to people about that too.
Great, thank you.
Sure. Thank you as well.
Thanks, David.
Thanks, David. So Mike had his hand up as well. So Mike, you should be able to talk. I think I unmuted you.
Oh, okay. Good afternoon. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I did want to follow up on the comments of the previous speaker. I think his name was David. So you probably all received an email from me, but it was more on putting in comments for a very similar business plan, the SJJPA business plan, which will be on their agenda March 26th. So I put that email together and included Peterson Volman and several in Oakland Athletics Investment Group, LLC, because it kind of tied together the Oakland Waterfront Ballpark Project Environmental Impact Report and the JPA business plan that the folks Groton and Stockton are doing. So what I felt, just to kind of summarize, was I think that there needs to be a very strong public-private partnership involving Amtrak, Union Pacific, Capital Corridor JPA, San Joaquin JPA, the City of Oakland, and Oakland Athletics Investment Group Limited Liability Corporation to financially contribute to safety and security measures in and around the Jack London station area for security cameras, fencing, and either overcrossings or undercrossings around Embarcadero West, so that the numbers of public that are going to this future development area, that we take a stance of, from the get-go, a zero tolerance policy of fatalities. We are not going to take any risk of safety being in the way. And that's why I put that email together for that particular business plan, because I think that, but beyond the service, is a very serious topic that we need to all come to the table with. So I want to know, following David's comments, but mine and my email from a few weeks ago, Did you have any follow-up? And I could put an email together for this business plan as well.
Yeah, Mike, this is Rob. I'll comment.
Sure.
I appreciate your support for under or over crossings. I think, I mean, as you're well aware, Capitol Corridor has many crossings up and down the corridor in areas where we don't have fencing, and we do have, unfortunately, fatalities. And we have made a real commitment to secure the corridor as much as we possibly can secure it. And it, as you know, it's also sometimes very hard to engineer these solutions, but we're committed to it, right? I mean, we really do care about it. There's a lot of complexity, though, over jurisdiction for things like crossings and fencing. But I would just say I concur with your sentiment. But the complexity, I would say, is about, you know, the notion of kind of a partnership and how that works and where the funding comes and all that is not a simple thing by any means. And
right,
so
and that's
I don't
why
really want to answer that because I don't think it's
the partnership, so that one entity is not solely responsible for all the financial and the construction.
Yeah, and just to say, like, you know, we're a small agency with a small budget. And that's, you know, I think what you're describing is a really complicated effort and not cheap by any means, and probably well beyond the funding sources of this agency, certainly. And you know, there'll be a lot of debate about who should be responsible for an investment like that. But all that said, though, so I'm just saying it's complicated. But in general, I would say that I would like to see, and even at the national level, there's a lot of discussion about this, a much more robust program to make as many of the crossings grade separated as possible up in, you know, wherever we can do that, especially the high traffic areas. When you look at this particular location and the notion of, you know, tens of thousands of people crossing the tracks at grade is a very scary thing.
Absolutely. That's why I've looked at it very closely. I've had a lot of conversations with President Dave Cavil, who he and the city informed me because of COVID, everything was pushed back a year, at least with the open public hearings and the EIR being released just recently. It should have been about a year ago. But they say they're hoping for a city council vote this summer, maybe early fall. And the ballpark, once built at capacity, will be 35,000.
And what we have to do, Mike, under the California environmental rules is we have to respond to that and formally submit comments. So there's a very structured, I mean, it's a very good thing, right? I mean, we're doing this on our projects too. The CEQA process is very regimented and structured so that all the feedback is public, the responses are public, the decisions can be made in a public venue. And so we will participate in that as is required by that process.
On that note, Rob, would you be able to invite to a board meeting? It doesn't necessarily have to be this April, but maybe sometime later this year, either virtually, in person, or to Rebecca's hybrid suggestion, you know, kind of quasi in person, quasi online. Could you invite the City of Oakland and the Oakland Athletics Investment Group, LLC, if this could be an agenda item where we can talk about it in public?
I'm going to have to defer on that, Mike, and get back to you on that.
Okay, because I know President Dave Cavil is a great public speaker and promoter of the project, and I think people would love to hear from him.
I think we have to be careful with the CEQA requirements. We don't want to jeopardize any sort of environmental process.
No.
So we might still have to do it more in a written format as opposed to a public meeting. That'll confuse that process.
Okay.
So I think there's a lot more to say. There's a lot more to come on that.
We can go on to something else, Karen. Thank you.
I
okay,
think,
and then we can send email about the business plan to you all, like I've been doing regarding the COVID update, right?
Sure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I realize we're right at 6 o'clock, aren't we?
Yeah, so we're at
Yeah.
6 o'clock. I just want to, well, there was one question. Someone asked, will this written presentation be available? I assume you're actually referring to this sort of PowerPoint deck. We were not, I mean, the plan was not to have that on the website. We do have the entire business plan or the draft annual business plan, and it's on the Capitol Corridor website. And I believe that the URL was in the chat there. I don't think we were intending though to put this specific deck up there unless someone on the staff, Rob, Leo, thinks otherwise.
Karen, I don't see any reason not to, although I would say it might confuse people because we have the business plan, which is the more detailed document. So it might be better just to leave that up.
Yeah, I would, just to remind you though, we are recording these and it might take us a few days, but we are going to try to get these up on our YouTube channel. And so there will be a recording of it, in which case you'd be able to see that. So I don't know, we'll talk about that, but the actual draft document is on the website on that business plan page. So I just want to, hold on one second. I just want to move to this very last slide. Get there. Just to remind you all that, you know, being at this public workshop tonight and asking questions and making comments, all of those will be included in sort of the official document that goes to the board. But you can also go to the website, review the entire document there if you wish, and make comments. There's actually a really easy online form on that page where you can make comments, or you can send them by mail, by snail mail, to our office. I suspect most of you won't be doing that since you're actually on this Zoom webinar. And there is a voicemail number that you can also call and leave comments. So just wanted to make sure you understood all the ways. And the deadline is March 26th. So I think that's next Friday. That's when the deadline is for the public comment before we then gather all the questions and answers and get that to the board. So otherwise, I want to thank you all for joining. This was really great. I think we all wish, I speak for everyone on our staff here, we wish we could be back on the train having these events, and hopefully we will next year. I'm sure we will. But we'll probably continue to do some of these online too. It's just an easy way for more people to participate. So thank you all. Although I think I'm seeing something in the chat. Hold on. Great job. Okay, we like that. And then more about 523.
Thanks everybody for coming today. Appreciate
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.